Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. I was going to shoot this one at home where I could sit down and relax, but slice of life happened and I had to get out and do something, so kind of busy today, so I'll shoot this one while I'm driving back. If you hear any noises from the back seat, it's going to be the kids, probably some yawns or something. I want to talk a little bit about the police. Today is Peace Officer Memorial Day. Probably most of you don't know that. Probably most of you never heard of it. It's not made to be the deal that the regular Memorial Day is, but Peace Officer Memorial Day. I forget how long ago it goes back, but it's to honor those law enforcement officers. We used to call ourselves peace officers. Who have been killed in the line of duty. It goes back to, the count goes back to the 1700s, and since then, over 21,000 peace officers have been killed in the line of duty. So if you're wondering why the flags are down today, that's why. Although you don't get the day off and you don't get time and a half. But anyway, this is something that I've been wanting to talk about. And also, this is the end of Police Week, something that most people don't know about either. We lost an officer here in Overland Park, Kansas last week, and so it's kind of appropriate that I do this, even though I've been wanting to for a while, because the subject of law enforcement is one that's discussed quite a bit when we're talking about the collapse of society and Teotihuacan and grit down and all of that. Exactly how are those in law enforcement going to react? Are they going to be the good guys, the bad guys? Are they going to be on the side of an oppressive government? Are they going to stand up for their oath and protect the constitutional rights of the citizens, of which they are themselves, or exactly what's going to happen? Even before recent events, what I would say is that yes, and that means yes, some are going to be good, some are going to be bad, some are going to be ugly. When you're inside let me say it this way: when you're outside of something, whatever it may be, you have a shallow understanding, and so you can view something maybe a little bit better than it should be viewed. You can view it worse than it should be viewed. Whatever, because your opinion is going to come from limited information. But when you're inside a system, you see it more closely. You understand it from the inside, so you understand also the complexities of it. And anytime you have a bunch of people in something, the complexities are just never-ending, right? Because people are people, and people are different, and each of them has their own agenda and their own reason for doing what they're doing. So I want to say a little bit, and I'm going to address also a little message here to those who are in law enforcement, who are currently in law enforcement. This shutdown that came as a result of COVID has shown us, has been a microcosm of, I believe, what we could expect if there was a greater collapse in society. I've been happy to see that a good number of law enforcement, a lot of sheriffs, but also some mainline police have stood out against this, said they are not going to enforce what they consider to be unconstitutional executive orders from governors or mayors or whatever, and they're just not going to do it. They took an oath, and they live by that oath, and they realize that they are on the side of the citizens. They are here. We talk about the thin blue line. The reason that it's called that is because the police uniform was traditionally blue. Not always. Ours was brown. And many are brown. A lot of sheriff's departments are brown. train of thought. I'll get right back to it. But they call it the thin blue line simply because it is so thin. There are so few people in law enforcement compared to the total population. And it's the line that stands between, the good folks and the bad folks, between civil society and the chaos that would occur if that line broke down. I looked it up just so that I would know, because most people know a number of people who either are or have been in the military. Most people don't know anybody who has or is in law enforcement for the most part, or if they do, they don't know as many who have been in the military because so few are. I looked it up, and I think it's something like I don't know, 2.5% or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But it was an unbelievably small number of people, and those who go into it, because there are people go into it for different reasons. The right reason to go into it is I feel, the reason that I went in, and the reason many people did back then, and that was to serve their community, to get the bad guys, stop them from hurting the good guys, the good people, and it was from a sense of justice and individuality. It was, we were raised, and I think I've mentioned this on a previous video, we were raised on John Wayne and on the Lone Ranger and Cheyenne and, High Noon. The lone law enforcement officer standing up for what's right against great odds. And we were, raised to believe, and we did believe, that there was no higher calling than that, and the extent to which you stood up for what you felt was right was the measure of a man, or a woman. There's more nowadays. There weren't very many in my day who were women, but there are now, and I know some fine ones. When we think about this, it's how the police would respond. It's difficult for the average person to know. Some will, and I know that I lost my train of thought there for a second. I'll try to swim back to it here in a minute. What we've seen here is a microcosm of what's going to happen, I think, in a greater collapse. So like I said, some have stood up, and I've been happy to see that some have stood against these, says that we will not enforce these. That's what law enforcement should be doing. On the other hand, sadly, and to my disappointment and disgust, I see too many out there, like the ones who were writing tickets to those people sitting in their cars at a church trying to listen to their pastor on the radio, trying to shutting down nail salons and hair salons, and doing it apparently with enjoyment or a feeling that they, because they were given orders to do so, they were proud to follow the orders, and that is the wrong reason to be in law enforcement. So these people, even though they are a part of the community, it's difficult because of the situation that you're in to be seen by the community as a part of them very often, and of course that depends on behavior. But then it's easy for those in law enforcement to feel that separation, that people are kind of looking at them many times as the enemy, right? Because how often do you go blasting down the highway, look up and see a police car or a highway patrol or a sheriff's deputy, and you see them sitting at the side of the road? How often are you happy to see that, right? Never. So there's this adversarial relationship there. Anyway, the point of this is that we have seen, I think, exactly what would happen in a major catastrophe, and that is that some law enforcement is going to do what's right, some's going to do what's wrong, and some's going to do who knows what for the wrong reasons. This probably isn't new, but I see it that it has progressed since what I call, and many people also call, the rise of the militarization of the police. The police were supposed to be, we had protect and serve on our cars while I was in uniform, and you were supposed to be a part of it and serve that community. You weren't supposed to be an overlord. And there was a book written some time back. Let's see if I can remember what it was called. I think it was called Warrior Cop, and it was by I believe a police officer who also felt the way I did. That as these police departments, and a lot of it was because equipment was coming back from the Middle East and being made available to the police departments, and being good bureaucrats, police chiefs and things like that, just couldn't pass up the chance to jump on some federal help, and they got their MRAPs and they got this and that and everything. And all of a sudden, what we used to do in a pair of slacks and a 6-gun and a Crown Vic, all of a sudden these guys needed, to look like they were storming the beaches in order to be able to go out there and write tickets and things like that. And I have seen there has been a change in the personality on many of them simply because of that. If you take somebody from an understanding of being a civil servant to a person who now you deck them out like warriors, you're gonna see that manifest in the wrong kinds of personalities. Now some of the guys are still great, and some of them aren't. I recommend a movie to you all about this that I just recently saw, and it's called Waco. It's on Netflix, and I would suggest that you watch it. It is, and I watched it with interest because I didn't think that it was going to give a fair representation of the situation in Waco. For any of you younger people who don't remember that, I don't know what I'm talking about. It was about the standoff of the Branch Davidians down in Waco and federal law enforcement response, total over-response, inexcusable, disgusting, okay? And it started actually with the situation on Ruby Ridge with Randy Weaver. So I didn't think they were going to do a very good job, but they did. They did a good. Now it didn't tell everything. For those of you who know those situations intimately, you'll say, well, they left that out and they left that out and they left. Yeah, they left a lot out, but they didn't sugarcoat it. And I would suggest that any of you who are not familiar with law enforcement overreach, watch those movies. I would also suggest a series of books, and I don't remember I read them years and years and years ago, and they were by Matt Bracken, and the first one is called Enemies, Foreign and Domestic, and then there's two others. The names are kind of like that, so I get them mixed up. But you can get them on Amazon, I'm sure. And and I don't think Bracken, he was never in law enforcement. As I recall, he was a SEAL. But for somebody who was never in law enforcement, he has nailed federal law enforcement. So he must have had some very good people advising him on this. But he nails it. And if you want to read a series of books that will scare you to death after you read mine, right? Read Bracken's books. They are great. I can tell you that he knows what he's talking about, and it's something that every citizen ought to read. So I'm gonna conclude this and say a few things now to the guys out there in law enforcement now. To you good guys who are doing it right for the right reasons and understand that your responsibility is to the citizens you serve and to the society you serve. You have my respect. Keep doing it. I consider you my brothers and sisters. Stand against these people who are doing it wrong. Okay? To you guys who are doing it wrong, who think that this job is for you to feel important or act like a little authoritarian idiot, who think that it's great to go out and write tickets and ruin people's days just for the fun of it, who think that you're a little bit better than the people who pay your salary and who probably got the job because nobody paid attention to you before and now they've got to, and you're a big guy with a gun and a badge. I have no respect for you. I do not consider you my brothers and sisters. And you ought to get your butt straight. And you good ones out there, hold these other ones to account, okay? So anyway, that's my message on this Peace Officers Memorial Day and the end of Police Week. There are some great ones out there. Support them. There are some who aren't. Stand up to them. And I think I'll leave it at that. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.